Hello and welcome to this webinar on the EIC Pathfinder, how to prepare a successful application. My name is Emma and I will get you through the day. And along with me is my colleague Barbara Spano. This webinar, just a few housekeeping rules. The webinar will be recorded. Your microphones are muted and your cameras are off. Please use the Q&A function to ask all the questions you might have. And if you have any technical issues or comments, please use the chat. This is the agenda for the day. First, we'll have some welcome and opening remarks by me, and I'm a national Danish contact point from the Ministry of Higher Education and Science. And along with me will be Maria Østergaard from the Danish Regional EU Office. Then there will be a part on what is the EIC Pathfinder. We will have two research cases, one with a professor from DTU and one from Aarhus University. And then we will have a session on success rates. And last but not least, closing remarks and information about the upcoming EIC workshop. Just a few words about me and my colleague Barbara. I am an NCP and program committee delegate for the European Innovation Council Pathfinder and Transition Instruments, and as well for Cluster 1. And my colleague Barbara Spano is an NCP and PC delegate for the Accelerator instrument, and as well as legal and financial issues. Where can you get support? There are a lot of different places where you can get some support if you are planning to do any kind of Horizon Europe project. You can contact the EU regional offices, also the European enterprise networks. You can talk to university fundraisers and research support personnels. Consultants can help you with your application, or you can contact the NCPs. I will now give the word to Maria Østergaard from Greater Copenhagen EU Office, who will tell you about the Danish local, regional, and research co-op process.
All right. Thanks, Emma. Is the sound okay?
Yes, it's fine. Thank you.
All right. So, my name is Maria Østergaard, and I work as an EU advisor at Greater Copenhagen EU Office. And I will now tell you very briefly about which types of support infrastructure you as a researcher can expect to meet in Denmark, and where you go and find this support when applying for EIC Pathfinder. So I guess that was actually my first slide. Yeah, thank you. All right, so I'm guessing that most of you attending this webinar have never heard of DACOP before. So just very briefly, DACOP is a collaboration between representations for Danish universities, municipalities, and regions in Brussels. We deliver early intelligence, project assistance, visibility, and influence across various themes, priorities, and European funding instruments. Especially relevant for this webinar today, we support proposals within EIC Pathfinder Open and EIC Pathfinder Challenge. All Danish universities as well as regions have designated support staff to support you when drafting your proposal and also after the project is hopefully granted. The main takeaway I wish you have from my short presentation is that you become aware of the support infrastructure available to you. We offer various types of support, for example, early validation meetings, where we discuss if your research and innovation project idea is within the scope of EIC Pathfinder. We offer review of your proposal. This can be done for several iterations. We offer budget assistance and much more. So in order to have the most benefit of this support system, it's a very good idea that you start early and contact your local support team as soon as you're considering applying for the EIC Pathfinder. And this goes both for the open call and the challenge call. On the next slide, then you can see the contact information we have listed for you. On this slide, you can see where to go for help If you are located in the eastern part of Denmark, that's covered by the Greater Copenhagen EU office, so you can see for the universities and the regions where you go and find your support infrastructure. And on my last slide, we have listed the contact information for what we here call West Denmark. So you can find the contact information for universities and regions on this slide. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. All right, I will walk you through the EIC Pathfinder instrument. I will ask you to write all the questions you might have in the Q&A function, and then I will answer them after my presentation. The European Innovation Council is a program under Horizon Europe, which is a research program in the European Union. Horizon Europe is structured in 3 pillars, and the EIC is one of 3 innovation programs in Pillar 3. The European Innovation Council consists of 3 instruments, and the focus of the program is to fund research to development the scientific basis to underpin breakthrough technology. The instruments are Pathfinder, Transition, and Accelerator, and they cover different parts of the TRL scale. Pathfinder, which is the theme of this webinar, covers the lower TRL level 1 to 4. Which means that they target early stage research on breakthrough technology. For those of you who are not familiar with the TRL scale, it stands for Technological Readiness Level and is a method for estimating the technological maturity of the project from idea to commercialization. Today's webinar will solely focus on EIC Pathfinder. It is important to mention that EIC operates with 1-year work programs. Therefore, the information today is based on the work program for 2023, and there will be a new program for 2024, which will be most likely the same, much of the same, but it can vary a little bit. EIC Pathfinder in a nutshell. The EIC Pathfinder supports the earliest stages of scientific, technological, or deep tech research developments. The project aims to build a new cutting-edge directions in science and technology to disrupt a field or a market, or to create new opportunities by realizing innovative technological solutions. EIC Pathfinder is the instrument for me. It is important before you start the EIC Pathfinder proposal that you consider whether the instrument is for you. There are 2 questions that you could ask yourself, which is clever before starting to draft the proposals. First of all, do you have a vision for a future technology that could make a real difference to our lives? And second of all, can you imagine collaborating with an interdisciplinary team of researchers and innovators to realize the proof of principle and validate the scientific basis of the future technology? If the answer is yes for these 2 questions, the program is right for you. There are 2 main features in the Pathfinder instrument. There are Pathfinder Open projects and Pathfinder Challenge projects. Open projects is a bottom-up approach where you as a researcher scope your project and idea in any field of science or technology without predefined thematic priorities. The deadline for these projects were the 7th of March, but there will be a new deadline next year. A Pathfinder Challenge project is a little bit different. These projects are top-down, which means that the Commission has made out a list of challenges for the EU, which needs to be solved. The challenge projects are similar to the way topics work in Pillar 2 of Horizon Europe, if any of you have experience with that. In contrast to Pathfinder Open, Pathfinder Challenge projects has predefined thematic areas addressing specific objectives. The deadline for the Pathfinder Challenge projects is the 18th of October, so you are still able to apply for these projects. As mentioned, the technological readiness level is 1 to 4. I will now take a deep dive into the 2 kinds of projects. First of all, we will have the Pathfinder Open projects, and afterwards I will go through the Pathfinder Challenge project. Who can apply for a Pathfinder Open project? To be eligible for an open project, you have to be a part of a consortium of at least 3 independent legal entities, each one established in a different member state or associated country, and with at least one of them established in a member state. All legal entities are eligible, which means that you can either be from a university, an SME, or even a larger corporation. The funding you get from an open project is a grant, and grants are awarded up to 3 million euro larger, and it is possible to ask for a larger amount of funding, but it should be properly justified. The funding rate is 100% of all eligible costs with an overhead of 25%. The total indicative budget for 2003 is 179.5 million euro. When you have submitted your Pathfinder Open projects, there will be an evaluation process. It is quite easy, a very simple process. The Commission will assess each proposal separately, and after that there will be a rebuttal phase, which means that 1.5 to 2.5 months after the call deadline, you will have the right to react to evaluators' comments. Then the rebuttal phase is over. You will receive feedback for your proposal. There are 3 award criteria for EIC projects: excellence, impact and quality and efficiency of implementation. The weighting of these criteria are different, and it's very important that you keep this in mind when preparing your application. Excellence weight 60%, where impact and quality and efficiency of implementation weigh each 20%. This was about the Pathfinder Open projects, and now I will get you through the Pathfinder Challenge projects. The Pathfinder Challenge, the goal of the EIC Pathfinder Challenge is to disrupt a market or to create new opportunities by realizing innovative technological solutions grounded in high-risk and high-gain research and development. It means to establish a portfolio of projects for each challenge that explore different perspectives, competing approaches, and complementary aspects. The challenges are proactively steered by EIC program managers, and as I mentioned earlier, it is not too late for you to apply for these. The deadline is 18th of October. Who can apply for EIC Pathfinder Challenge? The eligibility is a little bit different from EIC Open projects or Pathfinder Open projects. The Pathfinder Challenge supports collaborative or individual research and innovation from consortia or single entities established in a member state or an associated country. For consortia, there must be at least 2 independent legal entities from 2 different member states or associated countries. If the consortia consist of 3 or more partners, at least 1 must be from or established in a member state, and 2 other must be from independent entities established in different member states. For single entities, they must be established in a member state or an associated country. The funding you will get for a EIC Pathfinder Challenge is also grant-based, and it's covering all eligible costs. EIC Pathfinder considers proposals with an EU contribution of up to 4 million euro, so it's a little bit more funding you get for Pathfinder challenges than Pathfinder Open projects, and larger amount is possible if properly justified. The total indicative budget is 163.5 million euro for 2023. There are always different challenges covering a large area of different scientific fields. So this year, the challenges are 5, and it's the one you can see on the screen. Clean and efficient cooling, architecture, engineering and construction, precision nutrition, responsible electronics in space, solar, LNG harvesting for innovative space applications. The evaluation process for Pathfinder Challenge projects is different from Pathfinder Open projects. You will still, of course, submit your proposals, and each of the projects will be assessed separately, including the rebuttal phase. But in contrast to the open projects, there will also be a step 2, which is portfolio considerations. I will get back to these in a minute. After the portfolio consideration, you will get your feedback. And again, bear in mind, when you prepare your application, the weighting of the award criteria. The portfolio considerations happens after every proposal has been assessed separately. The proposals that meet the threshold defined in the award criteria will be considered in the portfolio considerations. These consist of 2 parts. First, the program managers map the proposals in categories stemming from overall goal and specific objectives of the challenge. Afterwards, a suitable portfolio of proposals will be selected by the evaluation committee by applying portfolio considerations in order to propose a set of projects for funding to achieve expected outcomes and impacts of the challenge. I have brought with me an example of a portfolio composition for the challenge Clean and Efficient Cooling. As you can see, there are outlined different categories, and starting from the highest ranked proposal, the evaluation committee will set a portfolio of projects will be selected based on shared components and complementaries, ensuring diversity among the selected projects and coverage of all 3 categories. Yes, that was actually what I was planning to go through. I can see on the time that we are a little, we have time for a lot of questions if you have any. So please put them in the chat. I can see there's already some. Liu have asked, can collaboration include entities outside of Europe? And yes, they can include entities outside of Europe. It's just important that there will be that the consortium will have partners which has been established in member states or associated countries. It should be mentioned though that the partners outside of Europe will get no funding but can still be a part of the consortium. Yes, the next question. Are the funding rates of challenge projects the same as for open projects? 100% cost, and yes, the funding rate for challenge project is the same for open projects. So you get grants to cover all eligible costs, 100%, and then 25% for overhead costs. Are Swiss institutions eligible? So is Switzerland and associated countries. I will, my colleague Barbara will answer because she knows about the legal issues of that.
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. Regarding Switzerland, Switzerland is not yet an associated country, meaning that at the moment it takes part in EU projects within Horizon Europe as a third country. So our suggestion is that if you want to include an institution from Switzerland, that you include the institution beyond the minimum criteria of having at least 3 member states or associated countries. So that in case Switzerland won't be associated at the moment where the grant needs to be signed, that the consortium will still be able to work on the project. Regarding the funding of Swiss institutions, then it is up to the government in Switzerland to decide which topics and calls they want to support financially. We can send a link to you after the webinar because these calls and topics are announced every, I don't know, 3-4 months. But again, make sure that the institutions from Switzerland are not in the 3 that some are beside and beyond the minimum of 3 institutions from member states and associated countries. And then I give the floor back to Anna. Thank you.
The next next question is, does the Commission use AI-based evaluation tools? I think that you can maybe answer that too, Barbara.
Yes. Well, at the moment, so there have been a lot of discussion also at the Commission side regarding how to use AI evaluation tools, both when looking at the proposal and also making sure that it is something that has been written by the participant. It is also something that we have been looking and are still looking within the ministry. So at the moment, we cannot really answer about how they use AI evaluation tools. As we have been informed as a program committee delegate, the evaluators still go through proposals that are either online in the system, in the database, or that they print out. So as it is now, the Commission, the evaluation is not conducted by the Commission, it's conducted by the evaluators. But as it is now, nor the Commission nor the evaluators use AI with evaluation tools.
Yes, the next question is, formally, a minimum of 3 partners are necessary. How many partners are in reality required to have a chance to get funding? There are cases where proposals from 3 and up to, I think it's 9 get funding. I will say that most of the projects getting funding has around 3 or 6 to 6 partners in the consortiums. So it varies a little bit. But it's just important that you have a good consortium construction. Yes. Do you have the deadlines in 2024 and themes for the challenges in 2024? We do not yet have the themes. That work program has just been drafted, and it will be made official in the fall. The deadlines for 2024. We don't have them exactly yet, but it seems like for the Pathfinder that they will be around the same time as for 2023. So around March, there will be a deadline for open projects, and in the fall, there will be a deadline for challenge projects. Yes.
And then maybe regarding that, we can add that as it is now, there will be fewer challenges in the work program for 2024 than we have been seeing so far, because the entire budget for the European Innovation Council will be reduced.
Yes. The last question, I miss whether the answer provided regarding Swiss institutions also holds for UK institutions. Maybe Barbara, you can answer that.
Yes, you missed that because it didn't say anything. Yes, it is the same. So all the institutions that are still in the process of looking at the possibility, I mean, now it's like 3 years into the program of becoming associated countries, is also relevant for the UK institution. And also there we have seen that in some cases the government has been funding and supporting specific topics and courses. So the situation from Switzerland is similar to the one for UK. At the moment, they can take part as actually third countries from a country with high incomes and no funding. And the last question is, are external companies typically used to help write these applications? I would say yes. Most, especially companies, use external help companies, consultants to write the applications. For university, I guess it's a little bit lower there, because they have like these support functions in the universities who can help them. But yes, it's very typical that there are used external companies. And then maybe we can also add that here at the ministry we have this financial support.
Yes, we have financial support, what's called EU Upstart. You can find it in our website. You can apply for 50,000 Danish kroners if you are a partner in a consortia, and 75,000 Danish kroners if you are a coordinator of a consortium and are drafting a proposal. It's to help you with a budget for external companies, or you can use them for travel expenses or any kind of activities you might have in the drafting of in the stage where you draft the proposal for applying. So that can be very helpful. Yes, I think that was the questions for now, and I will give the floor to Mimi Puls, who is a professor at the Danish Technical University.
Yeah, I need to share the screen. Can you see my screen? No. As you can see.
Yes, we can see it.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see it.
Good, thank you.
Sorry.
Okay, I'll go ahead. I'll try to make it as clear as possible. I've been asked by Emma to give my experience, and I will try to share my experience. And usually not always my experience is the right experience, but you can take and leave whatever you feel out of the talk here. So I will try to guide you through EIC Pathfinder from Pathfinder to transition, and give you my example. And I think that I would like to have some question, because then I know what to answer. In the meantime, I will just tell you what I feel about it. So a little bit about myself. I'm from the Department of Energy Conversion and Storage. I'm a professor there. I'm heading a section of functional oxides with about 45 researchers, and my main interest is synthesis and characterization and fabrication of thin films material. So this is the lab. This is where we're doing all the work. And basically some example of what my scientific focus is included is, again, as I say, synthesis and advanced characterization, investigation of stimuli with material, and development of novel energy conversion. And here I wrote some of my experience in different applications, and also in different duties that I do have. So maybe I don't want to repeat what Emma says, because she says excellently. So I'll just say that there is two ways. There is basically the Pathfinder and the challenge. And I would like to give two examples, because I've been involved both in the Pathfinder and in the challenge. So I will give you some of the examples, and there is, of course, difference between them, but the difference already gave by Emma. I think for the Pathfinder, my main message is, and my feeling is what the reviewer is looking for, that radically new technology. They want to have the technology should be transformative. It should be novel and ambitious, and high risk, high gain. So don't worry about writing something that's beyond maybe what we can do, but there is a gain out of it. So you should push the limit, of course, with some indication that it's possible. I mean, you cannot, if you want to break some rules in physics or chemistry, I think you need to give more than just saying it. You need to give some indication that indeed it works. But otherwise, I think they're looking for something beyond what you're usually doing. So at least these are my experience in this area. So why do I think people apply for the Pathfinder or the FET Open, as it used to call? I think that first of all, the requirement for this, as Emma says, you need to have a clear and radical vision about the idea that you have. You need to have a concept that challenges the current paradigm. And most important, there is no limit to the topics. So basically, we can write about everything. And this is good and bad, because it's created a lot of applications, because everyone can see themselves sending to this. And indeed, it's a good opportunity for those who does not find themselves within a specific topic which the challenge, for example, suggests. As far as I know, but I'm not so sure, I think Emma can answer about it later, there is, they don't support roadmaps. So for example, roadmap for batteries or something, they do not support. They would like to see something beyond what the Commission already supported. So this is my old understanding, and maybe you can ask a question and probably there will be a better answer than what I'm giving here. Because of the openness of this call, then the system is often overloaded, and therefore the success rate is quite low. So there is a lot of application, and you send a lot of application, and you get a lot of rejection. So I'm going to show you some successful application, but keep in mind that I had a lot of not successful application. Good. The first example that I would like to give you, in a very brief example, is about Fed Proactive, which is part of what used to be, of what it is now, the challenge. So it is about, the funding for this is about 7 million euro. We got it for a project called Harvester, and someone asked about the consortium. So you see the consortium here is infinite. There is a lot of people, there is a lot of groups, and I think the advantage there that the budget was 7 million, so people could still, or groups can still see themselves and get some funding which enable us to do the job that we want to do. But it's very important to find the right consortium. Right consortium, I mean consortium which match with each other, people fit to each other. They like also to see some consortium with people who have been collaborated in the past. So don't just take a new people. Think about someone that you collaborate in the past and show that indeed you had a good collaboration in the past. This is just continuation or beyond the continuation. So the project of Harvester is powering the internet. It's basically the idea about it is to make a device which is very small. The definition of small in this project was about 1 cubic centimeter, and the idea was to create a harvester, which means a device which can harvest energy by means of thermoelectric, solar cells, and then charge it into a battery and then reuse it also with a micro SOFC. So it's a combination of different topics. And maybe the topics does not say a lot to each one of you because I have no idea who are the audience here. But I think the message here is that it's a very complex system or project which include many different parts, but all the parts are coupled together in order to make a device. And this is part of one of the devices that we have made through the project. The project is still running, and it's monitoring quite intensively because they want to see some device. They want to see some application in the end. In comparison to other projects where they don't maybe like to see the commission. I mean, they don't really look for an end product, but they would like to see a possibility. So if you reach TRL 3 or even 4 in Pathfinder, that would be great. In Harvester here, they would like to see 5 even. So this is the difference, which is also, I believe, it's very similar to the challenge project. The FET Open or the Pathfinder that I've had, and it just completed, basically this year we had the final meeting is about, it's called BioWings. It's about using biocompatible materials in order to use it for medical applications. And basically what you see here on the left, on the right, sorry, I don't know if you can see my cursor, I hope you can. Let me see if I can use a laser pen. Yes. So what you see here is just one of the meetings that we've had. This meeting was taking part in the Weizmann Institute in Israel. So we were quite good working together. And I think it's important because you are staying together with the consortium for 3-4 years and you would like to have a good relationship. So the consortium consists of PTU, Lund University, EPFL, Weizmann Institute, startup company, which is not anymore startup, Aquasort. Biomex is a startup company from EPFL, and Day One, it's a company who is promoting projects towards startup companies. So this is the consortium, and the idea of the project is to basically exchange some of the actuating material that exists in the market, which contain lead. Lead is abundant by the EU, so they encourage to find new material. And we indeed had a material which does not contain lead. It's based on cerium oxide. It's used often as an electrolyte for SOFC, but it has other properties such as electrostriction. So electrostriction for material, those of you who are not familiar, is the ability of material to change volume when you apply electric field, basically what I'm showing here. So you apply electric field, the material change a little bit the volume. The difference between this material and the other material is this material change the volume quite a lot compared to the other. So we suggested in this project to exchange some of the existing material which contain lead with material which is lead-free. And the other advantage of this material is it's very compatible with the silicon. So the existing material currently today, they do not integrate directly with silicon. So you need to put another layer in order to match this layer, which is the active layer with the silicon-based technology. Here, with the new material that we propose, we do not have to go through this step, which make the whole process faster and also cheaper. Yes. So in the project, we have just 1 second. I think I cannot really activate it. Okay. So in this project, we have produced membranes which can behave for using for example, as a pump. But the main activity of the project was the following. So the idea here was to separate, for example, the blood into different components of the blood. And the way that you can separate it is by moving the sample below with a certain frequency. And the frequency that we get is by actuating this material. So we can actuate the material will move, and it will create waves, standing waves in the channel, and it will separate basically the blood. Now, this technique exists, so it's not new. The only difference that we bring into the project is that we are exchanging the material that exists, which are lead, which include lead, with the lead-free material. Again, enable us also to work with people without the need for concern about harmful effects. So the project was quite successful. During the project, we make a lot of videos. We have done a lot of presentations, and basically we try to disseminate the project as much as possible. The Commission liked it, and the Commission would like to have it and of course you need the result in order to disseminate a result. So you cannot just make a lot of video if you don't have a good result. Luckily, in this project, we were successful in this project, so we were able to make a lot of progress in the project. The last part of the project, we have been able also to publish 2 papers, one in Nature and one in Science. They also like this activity because it showed the broadness of this project. During the project, we also established a startup company which called Seox, which is basically company which fabricated and tested the material that we have developed through the project. I think the most important of this, the outcome of this project, is the following. The project generated 2 transitions, sorry, because the other one is now applied. So 2 transition project. One of them is called Prisma. The other one is called Aquasom. I will tell you a little bit about it. And also FET Launch Pad project. So we've been able to generate out of this project quite a lot of other projects. The commission like it because the whole idea about the Pathfinder is to be able to go to the next step and the next step. So they would like to see that the idea is coming close to the market. And indeed, I think we were some of the few projects currently that have so much project coming out of the Pathfinder. And for this, the committee also acknowledged, and recently I've received many emails, and some of them are just mentioned here. So they identify the project as a successful project, and they would like to promote it through different sources. For example, the website. They took the project into one of their exhibition. So basically, the commission like to see results coming out of this project, and this project specifically resulted in quite a lot of application in the end. One of the projects that came out of this is the Prisma. So the Prisma is a project which deals with a micromechanical pump for insulin delivery. I will not go too much in detail because this is not the aim of this presentation, but just to put things in perspective, the pumps have been developed over the year for many years, and very recently there was a need for having a fully automated artificial pancreas, which can give the 3 hormones that usually our pancreas is giving. And this is where we come into play, and we suggested a project in order to fulfill this idea. The project is based on the finding from the BioWings. It's based on making a pump, which is based on ultrasonic wave, which push the insulin from one place to the others. Basically, we would like to integrate everything in a very small device. And what we're using from the BioWings, we're using the materials. So we're using the materials which enable us to integrate it directly on a device. And the other advantage, which I didn't mention because I don't have a lot of time also, is these pumps are able to push a lot of viscose material. And if some of you knows, the insulin is very viscose. And when you put 3 insulin or 3 components together, it became even more viscose. And the advantage of this material that we've developed through the project is that it's unable to push a very viscose material. So this is the idea about the project. The consortium of the project consists of people from DTU. It's Vincenzo Esposito, who is the coordinator of this project. We had a group from Weizmann Institute who are working on material. We have the Day One, as I mentioned before. This is the company who's taking the product into the market. And this is a newcomer into the consortium, which have not been in the original consortium. And they are experts in adiabatic research. And they will contribute in this direction. So the project is started and it's currently running. The other project that we have also started, it's called the Aquasome, which is based on exosome. And I'm not a biology, but I know a little bit about what's going on. So the exosome are tiny bubble-like structure that the cell release. So basically, these cells are carried information from one cell to the other. Now it's important because it behave like a mail from one cell to the other. It's sending information from one cell to the other, and it's important because it helps this exosome help the cell to communicate with each other, but also help diagnostic of diseases in a good time. The problem with this is to be able to separate it from the blood, and this is a challenge. So in this project, the Aquasome project solution was to use a thin films actuator. So during the BioWings project, we found out that not just the material is important, but the size of the material is important. So if you make it in a very thin film, you both save money, you save material, but you can get a better actuation, in fact, when you use a very thin film compared to thick films. So this is the current state of what Aqua Sort, which is a company in Sweden, sitting in Sweden. They are one of the leading in the market. They are using the actuation of the material currently using the PZT or the lead included material. And the whole idea is to use the platform and to use what we develop in the BioWings as a thin films and integrate it directly into the product in order to make a product which can be faster, better, and cheaper. So again, this is a picture of the project. We would like in this project to validate it to TRL5. We need also to go to demonstration TRL6. And the two areas that we have identified in the project is the plasma separation and the aquasome trapping. So this is a trapper. So if we activate here, I don't know if you can see my screen, my cursor. So once you activate the material, we can separate the cells and we can trap the cells either here or either here. And once we trap the cells, we can then use it for diagnostic. So, so the idea is to develop module which separate exosome from the blood and use it as the diagnostic and research as a first step. We use a thin film generated ultrasound to separate the exosome, and it's based on an innovation that was discovered or developed in the BioWing project. So the project consists of people from DTU, which is both me and Henrik. I'm doing a lot of material science, and Henrik is doing simulation, and then the Aquasort, which is a company in Lund, and then Thomas, which is from University of Lund, all of which are gathered together in order to make this project. And then we have day one, who will take the idea and try to bring it into the market, identifying the market, identifying the business case, and trying to put it into the market. Good. So before the question here that I will go into it, what I show you now is just success history. But there is a lot of, as I said, there is a lot of unsuccess history. And I think the last one that I have was 1 month ago when I've sent another Pathfinder. I indeed received very high score, which is about 4.7. 5 is the limit, but I didn't get it. And just to show that you need to be really excellent in order to get it. I got what they call a seal of excellence, but it does not help me. So in that case, I mean, they say that the project is eligible for funding, but they don't have enough funding for it, and therefore I could not receive it. And that means that the next step is starting from scratch again. And this is just one example, but I think that it's worth trying it, because once you get the project, you have the freedom to do nice science. I guess this is what I had to say. And if you have any question, I would be happy to answer if I can.
I cannot see that there has been any questions yet, but maybe they will come.
Okay, either it was too
All
simple
right.
or too difficult.
Otherwise, thank you for your presentation, Nini. It was very good, and it's nice to see that you have succeeded with so many different projects. Both Maria has raised her hand. I think she had a question.
Yes, thank you for your presentation, Nini.
Yeah.
I just wanted to hear if you can reapply or resubmit, because it didn't sound like you were planning to do that, but is it possible?
Yes. I'm going to resubmit and reapply next year again. This year it's over. So for the next Pathfinder, I will apply the project that I didn't receive this year. Now, about the transition, I think the advantage, if you get one Pathfinder, it's very easy to apply for transition because they count on it. And you have 2 years after receiving the Pathfinder, or after the Pathfinder is finished, to submit application for the transition. And I don't know, we had almost 100% success rate in the transition, but maybe it's a luck, I don't know. But I feel like it's much more easier to get, if you have a successful project, I think you can get it. Everyone can get it. So I don't know if I answer your question. So yes, I'm going to submit again.
All right, Nini, the questions are rolling in. The first question is, thank you for the nice overview. You mentioned that the research should be beyond our activities. Can you comment on how to highlight your experience, our experience / preliminary work a bit?
Yes, I think it's absolutely important to put some preliminary work because otherwise, you know, they have to either trust you or not trust you. So you put some preliminary work, but the preliminary work is really preliminary, because if you put too much, they will say, okay, you've already done it. So you put something to support your hypothesis, but the hypothesis is not proven yet. So if you claim something and you show that there is some simulation, calculation, some initial result that show it, it's absolutely important in my opinion. And it's also important because I've been evaluator also myself for some time. So I think it's important because it's giving much more, I don't know, it's giving the reviewer, I believe, it's giving them much more confident that, okay, it's really new, it's really good. And they also show that there is some preliminary work that work. But don't put too much, because otherwise they will just kill it.
All right, thank you. The next question is, hi Nini, thanks. Can you say why you think you succeeded?
I don't know why I succeed. I know that I didn't succeed many times, but why I succeed, I think, is because I realized that if you don't make a project which is interdisciplinary, it's very difficult to succeed. So at the beginning, this project that I mentioned before, we use this material for electronic application. And we got some comments and say, okay, in electronics, you want to use it for some actuation, and it's nice, but there is some things, and where is the interdisciplinary? And then we thought, okay, let's think out of the box. Where can we use it? I'm talking about the bio-wings now. And then we say, okay, what about bio application? And indeed, we found the bio application which needed. And I think it's helped because the comment that we got later that, okay, it's great because now you can use it in different other areas that you don't know or you haven't worked before. So I think the interdisciplinary is quite important for the success. And then also you really have to read and write and read and rewrite and do it over and over again and have a good time for it, because you know some words can change everything, and you want to write it in a clear way, in an appealing way that even my daughter, who is young, could understand it and not just expert. On the other hand, you want to go deeper into it when you go into the material. So it has to be a balance and require time and effort. And no, I haven't used for this project. I haven't used external. I've used the consortium to play or to write it. I don't know. Other question?
Okay, the next question, thank you, Nini, is from Frederik Kirk. Did you write the application within the consortium, or did you hire outside help?
I wrote it within the consortium.
All right.
So I didn't took any external, not for this project. I took indeed help from other projects, and I didn't succeed. But I don't know, it's because of the company that I took or not. But I don't know. I think it's a balance. I think it's a matter how do you feel. I'm feeling many times that I prefer to write it myself. I know I can change it. I can do it. Otherwise, I need to communicate my idea to another company, and it's very difficult these days. I mean, it's 60% excellent. So it's about the science, and I don't think no one else can write about the science but us.
As good as you. Thank you, Nini. The next question is from Martin Tamke. Thanks for your talk. Can you state which of the project was a Pathfinder in which and Fed open, and how you would see the difference in the application writing?
Yeah, so the bio-wings is open, is a Pathfinder, as it's called today, and the transition project where the Prisma that I show about the pump, the insulin pump, and the other transition project that I got is about the exosome, separation of exosome. And the project about Harvester, which we are running, it's not my project. I was a PI in this project, but that was within the regime of FET. What is it called? FET. It's similar to the FET challenge, basically.
Thank you very much. There are two questions left. How far did you go on the application in describing different use cases for the results of the project? i.e., did you foresee the transition project already in the application?
I will start with the last one. No, I haven't seen any. I haven't foreseen the transition project at all, because I think this is something that will come during the project, because you have an idea, you write the idea, and if the idea is successful, then there will come maybe 10 ideas out of this. And I think this is what happened in the project. I think it's absolutely important that you have a consortium that you really play together. And we had an excellent consortium where we sit together, discuss, having fun, also going to social things together. But yet when we discuss, we always support each other. And that was, I think, one of the good things about this project. About the, so I didn't foresee it to begin with. About describing different user. No, I didn't. We didn't describe different user. We described the need for the project. We described why do we need the project, why this project is needed, and what we will solve if we succeeded to make the project. So it's have to be clear and it's have to be very broad. I mean, if I'm going to solve a project that support one small company in Denmark, I will not get the money for sure. But if you're going to lift in the future, maybe some activities in Europe, I think they would like to see it. They would like to see something big, risky. They don't mind about the risk, yet big enough that they can see some application in the end. And you never know. They know. Everyone knows that the success rate of such project is very low, but they're willing to give if they can see that you are prepared good and you have some brilliant idea.
Thank you. There are two questions. Have been one more. How did you use the consortium? Or did you steer the writing? How did you steer the writing?
It's a good question. So the way that I steered the writing, I wrote it myself, and then I shared it with everyone, because otherwise I cannot work. But it's very individual. I cannot ask each one part to write one part, because in my opinion it will not be homogeneous. I would like to write everything, and that's what I did. I spent a few weeks writing it, but then I share it with the committee, with the consortium, and then we went into a loop of correction, decision. But of course, when I wrote it, I discussed with people. I got some idea. We had some meetings together. I wrote some ideas, and then I tried to put everything into writing myself. It's worked for me, but I don't know. I mean, it's very individual. Some people like to divide the work and give each part of the consortium to write a part and then collect it. I think it's difficult for me to collect things that I'm not writing myself, but that's really personal.
Sounds good. There was one more question. Day one are doing the commercial business. Do you all have a share in this company, or are they free to operate? Who have the rights to findings during the project?
So all of this has been written by the grant agreement before the project started. So the grant agreement, which is very clear. The one who's finding the idea is the one who have the right. If you have a patent, you have the right. If others are sharing it, if others are contributing, they also have the right. If you make a company, it's your company. Day one only support us with the business. So we come with the idea. Day one is basically our on the background all the time, talking to the people, asking them, do you have any new idea? Do you have any new results? And then they're taking all the results and they're trying to find market. They're coming back to us and then discussing with us. We had this, I mean, because we work so good together, we had this freedom to share it with everyone and saying whether people would like to join. Of course, with the contribution, if they contribute, but we didn't, it's very difficult to distinguish where people do some work and people did not do, because there was a lot of discussion. So we trust if someone say, look, I've contributed and I did it and I feel part of this, then they are part of this. And that's what happened, at least for the patent. And we were honest enough to say whenever we feel that we have been.
Thank you, Nini. I don't think there are any more questions. Thank you so much for your presentation. It was wonderful once again to have you with us for presenting the Pathfinder instrument. And it's very impressive to see all the projects that you have succeeded with.
Thank you.
Have great success with the next process.
Thank you and good luck with all the projects. Bye.
Thank you very much. Miss you. All right, the next research case we have is Nikolai Siller from Aarhus University. I do not think you have a presentation, Nikolai, but maybe you can just start. You're with us. Right, I think you can speak now, Nikolai. I'm sorry if there was some problems with the sound.
There we go.
Perfect. Thank you.
Good. Can you see me?
Yes, and we can hear you.
Okay, great. All right. No. As you said, Emma, I don't have any slides, and I think actually it's pretty good to follow up on what Nini was saying, because he basically said most of the stuff that I was also thinking about when I originally was thinking about whether I should actually apply to Pathfinder. I think that I'm going to maybe be slightly repetitive on what he was saying, but I do have a different point of view on how the process went and the thing about external support. So those two things, I think I will tell you a slightly different story about, and then of course, feel free to ask all kinds of questions if somehow it becomes inconsistent. So just to give you a little bit of my background, I'm from the physics department at Aarhus University. I work on quantum physics, all kinds of quantum technologies. So the project that we successfully got granted through the Pathfinder project, Pathfinder call, is a project where we are actually, it's a combination of doing a certain type of quantum computing hardware using a platform called photonics, and then trying to figure out, first of all, how do you build such a hardware so that it has the least amount of noise and can actually do sensible operations? And how do you make sure that you have a very good use case for that? So how do you make sure that this is actually something that would eventually have an impact beyond its groundbreaking nature in terms of basic research? And I think that's sort of a key point. And I think that was maybe a message that was all through Nini's discussion was, that even in spite of the fact that, excellence is 60% of this, and you have to hammer that point home, then there has to be a clear transition into something that is impactful. And I'll come back to how I work with impact, because I really, really failed at that for a long time. I'm not very, so what I am experienced in now is actually in the startup world, because I'm also in a startup. What I'm not very experienced in is EU projects. So I'm the coordinator of this Pathfinder project that we have now, and it's called QGANTIC, the Quantum Generative Adversarial Network, and then something with photonics, and you put it together and you spin it up, and it can sound like that. So I'm a coordinator of that project now, but that's the first time that I basically had to sort of deal with EU projects. I've tried to apply in the excellence programs several times in the European Research Council programs with a very limited success. But this was sort of the first time that something actually managed to get through in the European system. So that's very nice. And I have to say that, based on that experience, the program is actually very nice. I think the way Nini stated it is correct. It has a very low success probability, and I'm going to tell you why you need stamina for this kind of stuff. Well, that kind of is implied in low success probability, but the program is really nice. And I think also Emma also highlighted that in her run through of the program. There's a lot of freedom in this program on a lot of things. I mean, of course, you have to remember that this is like it's a program that mixes excellence with impact, and that means that it's not like the kind of stuff that you would have in a European Research Council typically. There's some overlaps, of course, but typically you have to think of it slightly differently. Think carefully about all your work packages, all your deliverables, all your milestones. All of this stuff is super, super important. And I had very limited experience with that when I started writing this stuff. And this is it's a painful story because actually I wrote this from the bottom up 3 times before it actually got granted. So that's also why I say you need stamina for these programs. Because also what Nini was saying, look, he's been successful several times, and now the last one didn't go through. Now he has to do it again. So we need to be prepared for that. I think, as modern researchers, we probably need to be prepared for that no matter what we apply for. But this is a particular case of that, right? So if your sort of starting point is very basic research, then you might need to think a little bit about how you sort of how you scope your stuff. That still has to be excellence, and I'm sure you can do that. But how you scope your stuff towards something that's more geared towards impact, where impact is very important. I was very fortunate because I had one of the partners in the project actually it has been a coordinator of a Fed Open project, which is what Nini was mentioning. That's the previous program corresponding to the Pathfinder, right? So he had a lot of experience in this in terms of, and he had also applied a couple of times. So that was extremely helpful. So within the consortium, already had that experience and sort of with it was. So what helped me a lot was actually, so I'm a basic researcher. I do theoretical quantum physics, right? So it's very basic, my experience. My partner in the consortium is an engineer, and that helped a lot because they have a different way of scoping things also when they write it down. So that was super good. So our process of how we sort of we intertwined in writing the proposal. It wasn't, I did not sit down and then write all I think nowadays it's something like 17 pages. It was 15 when we began this. I did not sit down and sort of write the whole thing and then pass it around and so on. It was more of a constructed effort of several people. So I was for a long time. It was basically like I was sort of I was the manager of the document, you could say, and then supplying, of course, input on various aspects. But everyone touched everything. So it's a different kind of process, and that can also work. Now, what happened there actually, so that's an interesting story, of course, now that since I had to submit it 3 times before we actually had some success with it, and it got actually pretty good scores a couple of times, and we're sort of wondering what's going on and so on. A funny part of that is actually that some of the stuff that we wrote in the very first version, which was more than 3 years ago, actually stuck all the way through. We never sort of changed it. And now we're sort of stuck with a few very unfortunate timings in some of the work packages in terms of some of the administrative stuff. It's not a big deal, but it's just something that you sort of, I wish, you pay attention to certain things, because the problem is that once you do this in iteration, what you're looking at is, of course, reviewers' criticism points, right? So you start focusing explicitly on that. So we did that for an excessive amount of time, because we sort of tried twice to get through and twice had to see what kind of criticism would come up here. The first time there was no rebuttal process. That came in the second round of that, and the first 2 weren't successful. So we tried different things. So it's a bit of a pain point for me, but it's also a learning process, and I think I learned a lot in terms of how you sort of scope projects. So I'm fairly happy that I went through this pain. So that's not too bad, but it's easy to say when you're finally successful and you sit here and talk about it. I think honestly I did learn a lot from that, and it did transition my thinking from a very basic research perspective to what I would need to be able to do if I wanted to, you know, scope my research in a more applied direction, which it didn't help me to do in other ways. So I think from that point of view, it's a meaningful exercise. So I think I want to say something, and this is maybe an anecdote, but let me try to. I'm not going to generalize too much on my personal experience, but let me try to give you details that will tell you why I say this. So excellence is 60% of the scoring. That's what you saw. Impact is 20%, and implementation is 20%. And that's, you know, we had pretty decent excellence scores in the first two tries. I think it was definitely above 4 always. I think it ended up at 4.5, something like that. Which they can give like fractional scores. Nini was also recommending 4.7 or something like that. So they can give these fractional scores in that sense. So that was the case in the first 2 attempts. And this is where I have a different opinion about what happens when you seek external advice, because actually we were a little bit stuck after having gone through the process twice, and even with one of the times it was rebuttal. So we had a lot of good information about how the process runs, asked a lot of people, and you know, trying to figure out what are we supposed to do about this. You know, the first thing you think about is I will never do this again. But after a few months, you sort of say, okay, actually some of the stuff was pretty good, and you still believe that it's a good project, then you're gonna try to look for a way to improve that. And what we did was, after some discussions, we decided to seek external advice. And I'm not. So we had an external consultant on this, and I'm not going to advertise external consultants in this meeting. So if you want to talk to me about that, just send me an email, and I can give you some advice on that. But you know, I won't highlight one company over another. So what happened there was actually that they looked at the documents and they said, okay, that looks fine, and they had a few comments about our excellence section. Not actually a lot. They had a few comments about our implementation section, also not a lot. And then they just said, you know, guys, hands down, you don't have an impact section. And this was a funny thing because, you know, it was a devastating information for me because it actually didn't score that low, our impact section. So maybe here I was very frustrated because that showed me some kind of, you know, there was a mismatch between the messages I'm getting. But it also might be that I started thinking, you know, maybe, you know, part of this. So the question is, how do you raise to the level where you're in the running, right? So yes, there's a lot of good scores and then excellent scores, and for these kinds of things, you need to get into the excellence pile, and maybe that was just the difference there. But actually, they just said, you haven't really covered impact. And I was sort of saying, look, if I look in the application text, then, you know, I do this, that, but, you know, at the end of the day, they totally convinced us that actually we had sort of done impact in the wrong way. And that kind of, you know, so that's my experience there, is that we needed outside help, even though I had an experienced person who had actually wrote one of these, successfully gotten fed open. Then we still were not really doing it right. And something I want to tell you is that a lot of the partners in this project are very basic research like myself. So that could also be the explanation. If that is the explanation, then think about it if you're in the same situation, okay? So basically, what they did was that what we ended up getting from this external consultancy was basically a complete sort of rethinking of our impact section. We didn't have to put a lot of new stuff in there. We didn't have to sort of, you know, all kinds of things that we've forgotten. We just hadn't put it together in the right way that a reviewer in these kinds of things could think about and see, okay, this is good for impact and so on. So my experience from that is that if you come from something relatively basic and you're sort of, you know, used to those kinds of things, then that can be a pretty daunting transition to figure out how do I write an actual impact section? So that's the reason why I'm actually sort of I advertise a little bit here for getting external advice in some form or another. Again, I want to say that I got a lot of good help from different units at my university in terms of a lot of the more formal parts of it. I think honestly we needed outside help to see this thing, and then having done it twice, and then in the third try someone comes in and tells you, look, you guys are screwing up completely at this point. Maybe you need someone from the outside to step into the room and tell you that sometimes, right? So that's how my own personal experience with this was. Don't underestimate the fact that it has to be excellent. That's 60% of the scores. Your implementation has to be good. I think writing a good implementation is not as difficult as writing a good impact. That's I think I'm going to stand by that because actually writing a good implementation is also about picking the right partners. And Nini was already saying that that it's a crucial aspect. I agree with the comments about the fact that if you're in the Fed Open program around the €3 million part, don't find 15 partners, in my opinion, because it's impossible to sort of scope that down. And I've been in an unsuccessful challenge application once, not so long ago actually, where it was a very big consortium, and that can work. Nini had one of his slides. You can definitely work that out as well, if you like. But it was I think the fact that somewhere around the 5-6 partners is probably very good. That kind of ends up defining your implementation phase anyway. So if you pick the right partners, I think you're in a very good shape to write a very good implementation part of the application. So that's the way it is. The impact is more about how do you connect your excellence to eventual let's say breakthrough, or however it is that you sort of make these connections to the use cases. How do you write down where do you see yourself making an impact in terms of the different, it could be different sectors. What are you targeting here, and so on. In our case, it was we had two things going. It was quantum computing, and it was a particular platform, which is photonics, right? So impact, we had to think about the fact that also in terms of managing your risk, it's a super risky project, right? High risk, high gain. How do you manage your risk there? What's the impact in light of the fact that it's a risky project? And you need to start thinking about, what are the different things that whatever it is that you develop could be used for. And photonics is a very general technology, so there's other things that this could be used for. And what are your eventual use cases of, if you successfully build, we are also building devices, just like Nini was talking about. What is your eventual use case, or what is your foreseeable use case if you get there? Now, so there was also this question about how many preliminary results do you put in there? Nini's answer was I think all very complete there. We did exactly the same sort of thing. After you scoped out, okay, these are the partners that we're going to go for, then of course it helps if some of the partners have some previous experience of collaboration. It doesn't have to be that you publish papers together or had innovation grants or something like that, but something credible that you can write about overlaps of technology, overlaps of people or networks, or something like that you can where you can push these points. I think that's very important. I think it's also, in my experience, this is what I was told by many people. I only have this one project, so this is just my experience. Is that you don't see many projects where there's not some kind of company end to it. So you need some companies. In our case, there's a use case. There's like the applications of the technology. How do you use it in the end? And then there's the fabrication of the technology. The companies involved in those two things among the partners. So it's very good to think about. Are you having a complete pipeline in that sense? And that also goes into the direction of saying it has to be interdisciplinary. Now, I would say don't overthink that all the time. Interdisciplinary means a lot of things to different people and so on. And we're not, on a piece of paper, I would say our consortium is not super interdisciplinary. It's all technology kind of things, theoretical or applied and so on. And we also had, I think at the end of the day, we always had some criticism that, is it interdisciplinary enough? Because, if some of our applications are on the end user side of something, and this was like, there's actually generative machine learning things that's possible with these technologies. So are you going into a direction where users, there could be, detrimental effects to users and so on? Should you involve people that are involved in actually looking into how people use these kinds of technologies and so on? And that's an open question. We ended up at the end of the day not having that directly in. We had some good partners that were sort of silent partners that could scope some things out. That's always worth mentioning, even if they're not budgeted partners in the that are getting grant funding from the project. I think so that was, I think that's more or less what I had to say. I mean, in terms of, I said something in terms of the teams. And as Emma was saying, several countries consider widening the scope in the EU East-West kind of axis, these kinds of things. That's also something that they like to see. So that's also something that I think nowadays this is something that is actually asked in the evaluation processes. So consider that, but don't. It's not a stop and go decision in any sort of way, as far as I'm aware. So that's that. Good. I think I'm kind of at the end of what I wanted to tell you. So I think my biggest probably message there is that I think after having done this a few times, we were stuck and we needed someone to come in from the outside and just tell us, you guys are wrong, something like that, right? And sometimes, you just need someone to step in from the outside, and then that's where we were very happy that we got external help, actually. So yeah, I think that's it for me. I'm happy to take your questions.
All right, thank you, Nikolai. That was a very nice speak, and it was interesting that you told us something different from Nini. That's very good with different perspectives. There is at this moment one question, and I believe that there will be more. It says, "Hi Nikolai, how do you use your research support/supporters? Did this help you?"
Yes, I think I would say that it was very helpful in terms of saying whether we had completely missed on some aspect of what was the sort of basic structure of the application. So in the very beginning, so in the first version of this, we, in the first, even before we submitted the very first version, we had earlier versions than that. There, I remember that we had some issues with, are we sort of getting all the structures right and so on. So there we actually used our local research supporters to tell us, maybe you're missing a little bit here and there. The fact was that, as I said, one of the partners has previous experience, and actually, this was a known person to our research supporters. So they all they all gave the same advice. So that was from that point of view. So from a practical point of view, it didn't take much for them to sort of tell us what we needed to do, and we were very quick in terms of doing it. So that was at the very early stage of that. That also happened in the second stage. I had some discussions with our research supporters about our the feedback, so the reviews that we got, and how to deal with the rebuttal. That was also something that we used there. I hope it makes sense.
Yes, there is one more question. You mentioned the interdisciplinary. Could you say a bit of your consortium? Are there what are their different backgrounds?
Yes. Okay. Good. So there's experimental quantum physics, there's theoretical quantum physics, and then there's engineering, photonics engineering, it's like electronics engineering and photonics, right? So all of it is very STEM-like, right? So you now your definition of interdisciplinary might be challenged now, because what do you mean by that? Do you mean that I go across, in Aarhus we have Faculty of Natural Science and Faculty of Technical Sciences, right? And those two used to be one unit for reasons that you can argue you could be, right? So in that sense, how interdisciplinary is that? Do you need to go to the business and social sciences? Do you need to go to the humanities and so on? That's the kind of discussion that can arise. So that was 3 universities. The companies are a use case sort of software company and very engineering. Software engineering and algorithms development stuff that's done there. And then there's a company in the Netherlands that does photonics chips. Actually, they manufacture the very devices that we want to use. So that's again quantum physics, engineering, all this stuff. So from that point of view, our backgrounds are, I would say, from that point of view, if you use the sort of broad scope interdisciplinary, we are a small corner of something in principle, right? So whether you consider a physicist different from an engineer actually becomes the real question here, if you understand what I'm saying.
All right, thank you for your answer. There are no more questions. Thank you again for your presentation. It was wonderful, nice with different perspectives, and
no problem. Thank you.
Wonderful. All right, so we will get to the last part of the webinar. And that is about the success rates. I have success rates from 2021, 22, and the first part of 23. The Pathfinder results for 2021. As you can see, the success rate is, as both Nikolai and Nini has said, quite low. There are many both submitted and evaluated proposals, and not much are funded. The Danish success rate is a little lower than the European success rate, but in total, we are actually doing quite well in Denmark. The success rates on the challenge projects are higher than the European level, and for the open projects, it's a little bit lower. If you have any questions for this part of the webinar, you can just ask them in the Q&A function. You do not have to wait until the end of the presentation. For the 2022, the challenge project in Denmark, the level is very high. It's 25%, but as you can see, it's 1 out of 4 projects. So 25% is maybe a little bit misguided if you look like a lot of projects. Again, the score for your open projects are very low, but the total score is actually a little bit higher than from 2021. For 2023, we only have the open data, since the challenges have not had the deadline yet, and Denmark was doing quite well. We have 2 funded projects out of 25 submitted projects, and in total there were 783 evaluated projects. Last but not least, I will tell you a little bit about the workshop that there is next week. It's about how to write a competitive application. It's the 5th of September, so next Tuesday from 10 to 2. It's at Aarhus University, and there is a link to registration in this PowerPoint slide. Sorry, yes. In this slide. You can also find it on our website. I must say that the registration deadline is today. So if you want to sign up for this workshop, you have to do it today. It will be possible for you to get some feedback on the application that you are writing at the moment and get some good tips to what you should do and what you should not do. There will be a consultant from an external company who will guide you through the process of writing an application. And there is one question.
What is the difference between next week's seminar and today's?
Next week's seminar is a workshop, so you will be able to get feedback on the work that you're doing, and it's it's not like in this virtual space. It will not be so much about like the rules, but more about what is the process for you. So how do you plan the process for your application? I hope that this answers the question.
And there is one more question. Is the workshop on how to write a competitive application about the open or challenge code?
It's both on open and challenge code. So if you have an open, like you're planning to do an open proposal, you can bring it with you and you can get some feedback on the process. For the challenge, the challenges has a deadline, so of course you can get some help with that too. And I saw that someone was raising their hand. Okay. So I believe that this was the end of the session. Yes, Sven, if you want to take the floor, you are welcome to do so. I don't believe you will do that. Thank you for your participation for today's webinar. Oh, there is one more question I can see. Oh, thank you. Okay, I will consider a better microphone. Of course, we will write that down. Thank you very much. I hope that this was helpful for you all, and thank you again to Nini and Nikolai. The slides will be sent with you so you can share them with another time. And thank you.